Respiratory viruses like RSV, the flu, and COVID usually spike during the fall season and the winter months. That's why the CDC is recommending for you to get vaccinated sooner rather than later. However, a new survey from the National Foundation for Infectious Diseases found few U.S. adults intend to get vaccinated because they do not trust the shot or are worried about some of the vaccine's side effects. Our Sally Hernandez asked the CDC why and what the vaccination rate here in Texas looks like.
Can you just explain that a little bit for me? The risk one takes getting a vaccine, or the risk one takes without getting a vaccine and getting the actual illness?
Sure. Well, let's look at what the vaccines really do. The vaccines are extremely good at preventing you from landing in the hospital. And when you look at the numbers, last year, just last season, 95% of the people who landed in the hospital because of COVID, 95% of them had not been vaccinated. And so when we talk about what the vaccines do, really what they help do is to prevent or reduce your risk from being hospitalized. In fact, they reduce that risk by about half. Now, there are risks. If you get a vaccine, you might have a sore arm. You might feel crummy for a day or two. So it's not that there are zero risks, but when you compare the risk of maybe a sore arm for a day versus landing in the hospital, well, to me, there's no comparison between those two.
What do you think this next flu and COVID season will bring? Will it be worse or less than what we saw last time around?
Well, of course, we're all hoping for it to be better. But just last year, assuming we have the same kind of season this year that we did last year, well, that will mean that 800,000 people across the United States will have been hospitalized because of these three viruses. We'd like to do better this year. And the best way that we can do better is by having more folks get vaccinated. One of the things that we are trying to do is to up those numbers. For example, in Texas last year, only about 18% of adults in Texas had been vaccinated against COVID. Now, flu vaccines rates were a little higher, but they still weren't as high as we want them to be. One of the things that the CDC is doing is partnering with pharmacies across Texas to go to long-term care facilities, to go to nursing homes, to meet people where they are, to offer them these vaccines, all in the hope of reducing those hospitalization numbers as much as possible.
Dr. Nareev Shah, the Principal Deputy Director of the CDC, thank you so much for talking to us today.